After a brutal start to the season that had fans calling for heads yet again, the Vancouver Canucks finally made some major changes Sunday night when they fired general manager Jim Benning, head coach Travis Green, assistant GM John Weisbrod, and assistant coach Nolan Baumgartner. The team then went out, brought in Bruce Boudreau for its 20th coach in its team history, and Scott Walker as his assistant. The Canucks also named Stan Smeel interim GM and Ryan Johnson interim assistant GM while they search for new hockey operations leadership. Boudreau, the former Hyannisport president, signed a 2-year deal. He last coached in the NHL 22 months ago. Of course, he has 14 seasons under his belt between the Wild, the Ducks, and the Capitals. Won the Jack Adams back in his first season in 2008. This felt like a long time coming. Biz, were you shocked that the manner it went down or that it finally went down? What was your reaction last night?
Sorry, one sec. I got to interrupt. Sorry, Biz. What is Hyannisport?
That was a little Slapshot reference. A little subtle. He was in Slapshot. I figured I'd slide that in there.
Bruce Boudreau was?
Yeah. I tweeted out last night. I was watching it when I was prepping it last night. Yeah, he's number 7 on the Hyannisport presidents.
No shit.
Nah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Biz.
No, that's all right. Yeah.
No, I'm more interested in this cameo by Bruce Boudreau. No, okay. So I love the hire. I wasn't surprised to see it finally go down. I guess things were getting bad enough. The jersey on the ice, which has kind of become the patent move now by Canadian fan bases to get their teams going. Their performance against Pittsburgh was kind of the telltale sign, and the fan base was kind of just barking. It sucks. It sucks for Green because, he worked his bag off to get in that position, and although, throughout his tenure there, the talent pool seemed to get better, but the team kept doing worse. I'm willing to snap the blame over to Benning way more so than Travis Green in the way that he constructed the team. Listen, as far as my hockey knowledge, guys, we come in here and fuck around. When I'm questioning a lot of the moves, usually things are probably not going maybe in the best direction. Of course, the cap situation was another nightmare alone of asset management that became a problem. So he had the reins long enough, and I think that it's definitely time to hand them over to someone else. But as far as having to see Green get fired and seeing it go down like that, I think that he's a coach that has the respect of his players. I think that things really went south, and I think that he's definitely going to get another shot. Now, as far as the Boudreau hire and going back to that, I think it's a great hire because of his experience with developing high-end talent. Now, did he ever get Washington over the finish line as far as winning the Stanley Cup? No, but they were also, I believe, winning President's trophies and having a ton of success where they were getting into playoffs. It just so happens they were running into Pittsburgh and some tough situations sometimes. So I like the hire in the short time to see if he can get through to these young superstars that, the pressure is really mounted on them, and they have a fairly young group, and things are not really going well right now. As far as their play, how much they open things up and get exposed offensively, they're one of the worst teams at generating off the rush while giving up the most off the rush. So the margin is just ridiculous, and you sent a fucking tweet to the group chat, and I'm not saying this would have been the answer for this season, but they got rid of Roussel, they got rid of Beagle, and they got rid of some guys who were some muckers and some grinders. Their penalty kill has been absolutely fucking atrocious. So
one of the worst in the history of hockey
through 25 games. So I don't know if that's sometimes a result of guys checking out and really hoping that something changes because they're not, as a group, not happy with the environment, to where there becomes less commitment, maybe blocking shots, maybe effort defensively, and really hoping there's a major change so then they can figure things out. But this is not something that I believe is just going to be the flick of a switch. I think that the Boudreau hire, though, in the short term was probably a great one given the talent pool of guys available. So I hope it sucks, man. These guys are going through hell in that locker room. I would imagine that in this next little stretch of about 6 weeks, they kind of figure out where the team's going to go. And then they probably, in some cases, will probably try to get rid of some assets for some draft picks or some younger talented players that they hope to exceed. JT Miller's a name that's been floating around big time, which, has been tied to Boston rumors. But I'll hand it over to you, Whit. Sucks to see people lose their jobs, but it was the inevitable.
Yeah, they they've been so bad that it was a matter of time before something went down, and you figured it would be. I thought if it was just one, it would be Benning, and there was a chance of it being both, which it ended up being in terms of coach and GM. But Travis Green, I do feel bad for a little bit. You could tell. I mean, by the end, it was like the looks on these guys' faces. Like by the end of this thing, the players, the coaching staff, they had nothing. And Bruce Boudreau has to get there and figure out a way to get Besser and Pettersson going, because I don't know. Like, were we completely wrong? I mean, I've said before on this podcast, like Pettersson reminded me of Datsuk, and you saw what he did in his first year, Rookie of the Year. The next year, he was just
like how strong he was on the puck sometimes.
Yes.
And I haven't really seen as much of that in the last, like, let's say 12 months.
But you haven't seen anything remotely close to that. So you mentioned that he gets a ton out of his offensive players, Boudreau, and he plays a lot. Like Ovechkin played a ton, Getzlaf, Perry played a ton in Anaheim, right? Minnesota's a little different. At that time, they were a completely different team than when they're at now. Shout out the Wild. But if you go there and you can't seem to get Pettersson going and Besser going, then you look at like, is he not the player? Is Pettersson not the player that he was at the beginning? Was he just kind of like completely playing out of his shoes right when he got into the league, which is kind of hard to imagine. Like, if you can come into the league your first year and play the way he did, you got to think that there's a special player there still. And confidence is a crazy thing. Any sport in the world, it doesn't matter what you're talking about, but it's like everything to a guy. And once you lose it, it is so hard to get it back. It's a lot easier to lose it than it is to get it back. And so right now, this guy's going to need to find a way to get these two going. I think the playoffs are completely out of reach now. They'd have to go like 40 and 20
Wait,
or whatever.
I wouldn't say that Travis Green isn't a player's coach, but I think that Boudreau has I think if any criticism faces, he's probably not hard enough on his players throughout the time in Washington, as far as like maybe emphasizing, playing more defense. And I don't know, what the situation was in Anaheim, where I feel like they had a pretty old team, not old in a sense of Getzlaf's age, I guess, but there seemed to be a lot of veterans where like I think right now, if anything, they need a soft coach to go in there and really kind of help these younger guys find their confidence again. Because you do have to approach these younger guys a little differently than you once did. We've talked about that many a times. So in order to get these guys going, I think that they're going to have to really feel the confidence from their coach and their abilities. I think that's a big component to getting the most out of young players. They have to feel like their coach actually believes that they can accomplish it. And I'm not saying that ever deteriorated with Green, but if there's one player's coach that can do it, at least to the guys available, it's definitely Boudreau.
I remember when Terrien got fired, which he recently just did with Philly and Vigneault, but this is when I was on Pittsburgh. And then Bilesma came in. I was struggling. I wasn't having a good season. And Bilesma came in. He was meeting with guys, right? Like, he came in, and then we had a game. We had a game that day against the Islanders. And he's meeting with guys, and he grabbed me, and he's like, Ryan, I know you're a great player. Like, an enormous pump-up speech, right? Like you got to go back to trusting and believing, like, what you can do. And it was really nice to hear. And It was something where he needed me to play better. Ray Sherrill needed me to play better. And it was something that I'm sure Boudreau will do with Pettersson and Besser in terms of guys. Like, you're such incredible players. You have world-class skill. Besser, your shot, your vision, Pettersson. And just really try to get them to believe. And it's not going to happen until they really believe it themselves and they have some success on the ice. But it means a lot when a new guy comes in and tells you that. So I'm sure that'll go down. Now, mind you, in my case, we lost the game against the Islanders. I got traded 3 days later. But still, I'm just saying, when a new coach comes in to guys who are struggling, they can really try to get through to them with words and being like, I know how good you are. Loosen it up right now. try to take the weight of the world off your shoulders and go out there and just play. Like it's crazy. It's crazy to me that when your son or daughter is 9 years old and you say, hey, go have fun today. Have fun at the game today. Like that's realistically what guys in the NHL sometimes have to do.
It's like, they need to hear it.
Why did you play this game? Why did you begin playing this game? Because you love it. It's so much fun. And when you're playing great at the highest level, it's the funnest, most fun thing in the world. So that'll happen. But I still think this is a lost season. And the defense, when talking about Benning, like, what is this defense? They got one guy that can get the puck up to these forwards, so you can't say that's not a factor in all this. In terms of Pettersson's not getting the puck through the middle with speed the way he would if he had Colorado's defense feeding him. So there's a lot of holes in this lineup, and Demko looks like the best goalie in the league in the past few years, and he's really struggled, but it's the defense in front of him. So we'll see what Boudreau could do. The hire makes complete sense to me because of what he's done in his past, and he was at NHL Network probably like, Jesus Christ, I want to coach again, and he gets the chance. So good luck to him.